Our guest today on A Bit About Everything is David Preston, the new Head of Franchise Brands at Sigma Healthcare. Welcome, David. Thanks so much for making your time available as we start 2023.
Great joining me. Looking forward to it.
I guess for me, one of the interesting things about your career path is that you started off pretty much as a pharmacist, and I wonder whether is that a family background in pharmacy in East Gippsland, or is it?
Well, interesting you say that. Historically, my grandfather was a industrial chemist, so it does run through the family, the chemistry gene, as it were. And even back a little bit further, back in our lineage in Italy, we've got pharmacists through the chain there. So, but inadvertently, I fell into the career as well. About 25, 30 years ago.
I suppose what's unusual for me, your appointment last year, I think it was September, October, which was just before your national conferences, which
yes.
that we don't see on many occasions a retailer come through the ranks in an independent sense and then be appointed into what I might call a head office role or a member support organisation like Sigma.
Yeah, no, it's a different journey. Certainly is. When I joined Sigma 7 years ago, it was really focusing on dispensary operations, a lot of the clinical aspects and things along those lines. But as a pharmacy owner for many years, and basically as a pharmacy retailer in a sense, you get the width and breadth and understanding of all aspects of the business. And, I think that put me in good stead to understand, even when I moved into sort of the corporate space, it gave me a very good understanding of, what needs to be done to run a successful pharmacy. And I think, again, it gives you a unique insight into all the aspects of, the sort of shared services that help run, the pharmacy operations from a franchise perspective.
I'm sure from a member perspective, your appointment would have been greeted very strongly by some of the members who probably Sigma's had some challenges over the last 10 years. It's sort of, if I look back, it's sort of moved from a distribution organisation to a far more customer-focused organisation. Is that, as a customer, and I suppose someone who probably wanted to influence the
I think again, it's a double-edged sword though, because you do have you've got intimate knowledge of being a franchise partner yourself. You have a very deep understanding of what the franchise relationship looks like from both angles. I think that's one of the benefits, but it also does from my perspective, being a pharmacist. It's quite for me. It's quite important for myself professionally to be leading such a fantastic heritage brand as Amcal. It's been around for over 85 years, so it actually, professionally, it's actually. It's quite an honour to actually get the opportunity, and again, but that in itself, puts a bit of pressure on you that. You've got to deliver the goods as well. So it's unique. I suppose you could see it as a unique appointment, but also in some ways it sort of makes a lot of sense because you get both sides of the story in a sense, and I get a good understanding of that.
Just quickly, have you put a manager or a partner, or have you got someone who's running your day?
Yes, so I've got a fantastic team. I've got a large pharmacy in Eastern Victoria, and I've got a fantastic team down there. That run the sort of retail and dispensary operations. And I've been working on that over the course of the last 6 or 7 years in building up that capability, ensuring that. That management oversight is there in the business, but I dip my toes in the water there a couple of times a month and keep my hands on the tools. Which is good, and again, it's good to have those insights into the programs and initiatives that we're actually rolling out through the brand, and getting the first-hand experience with it in the pharmacy setting as well.
So you've moved your family. I understand you live in Carlton now, which is a big. It's quite a significant change.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we've come from Eastern Victoria. a very regional place. I've done the reverse sea change, as we would say, living down on the coast down there, and come to Melbourne, brought the family down. We've really enjoyed the change though. It was a great city to live in. I lived and studied here for many years back in the day. So it's nice being back here and back in Melbourne, and the family is certainly enjoying the time down here as well.
I suppose one of the things for me, if I look at the pharmacy industry, one of the challenges is that you've got what I call a very large category killer type retailer in Chem Warehouse, and we've seen Priceline taken over by Wesfarmers over the last 12 months.
Yes.
How do you see the structure of the industry going forward? Because it seems that it's still trying to find its way, and I guess we'll talk a bit about COVID, but certainly from a retailing perspective, and I suppose being a services organisation in a community sense, the whole look of pharmacy seems to be changing pretty dramatically.
Look, it is changing, but it's also I think the words around consolidation, to be perfectly honest, and that's what we're seeing. There's a lot of consolidation, and we ourselves are going through a consolidation phase at Sigma Healthcare with our retail brands. So you are seeing that in the industry consolidation. You're seeing some strong brands gaining strong market presence, and I think that'll continue. And I think historically, when you look at pharmacy and you look how we've come from an industry that had many players in it, and I think we'll find over time that consolidation will accelerate, whereby I think the larger brands will continue to get larger and get a lot of scale, and certainly increasing their national footprint. And I think we'll find, even though there is still a really strong independent offer and presence in the industry, I think over time, that you'll see a lot more pharmacies transitioning to the branded pharmacy network, just out of a matter of necessity to be able to compete, because to compete in it's a professional environment, but it's a retail environment, and to combine the both of those and have that back office support, I think a lot of pharmacists are seeing that for them to compete and not only just survive but thrive, having the support of a national brand behind them, I think will become very important moving forward, especially.
We've seen in the hardware industry, Mitre 10, Home, they had True Value Hardware, and we've seen a pretty significant change in the direction of those brands. Do you see that sort of process sort of coming to pharmacy, or is it?
Yeah, look, and that's right. You've got to find with any brand, and you have to find your position in the market, and that's the key is ensuring that you establish your differentiation and what your customer value proposition is, and ensure that resonates with the consumer. Because at the end of the day, the consumer is the one that controls your destiny, and so I think that's similar to, say, in hardware. If in pharmacy, it's never been truer that finding your differentiated position and ensuring that you're executing, you've got excellence in execution is really what it's going to come down to in delivering on that customer value proposition.
One of the things I notice, our offices are in South Melbourne, but there was an ANZ bank down in Port Melbourne, which is now in 3 or 4 weeks become a Chem Warehouse.
Yes.
And I'm interested because I suppose if you look at rents in shopping centres and major facilities, and then you look at strips, like strips seem to be becoming a little bit more appealing now. Maybe that's part of COVID and the way people are shopping today. But I always sensed when I looked at pharmacy that it was harder to make a dollar in a large shopping centre facility than say a strip. So just wondering, how are you seeing that sort of challenge? Because it used to be that rents had to be sort of 10% of your overall structure.
Yes.
But today, you've got such mass centres. You've really got to try and make
That's right.
a dollar out of
I think
shopping
you know,
centre.
yeah, and it's an interesting point because you know, certain brands will tend to orientate in certain retail spaces. You'll see a heavy presence, you know, with price lines in shopping centres. But I mean, it's really that trade-off because you know with shopping centres that you're getting footfall. You know, you're getting a hell of a lot of footfall, and you know that at the end of the day, having footfall coming past your door is very important, and especially for the larger retail footprints in pharmacy. And so, you know, the balancing act is ensuring that, you know, with what your retail offer is, or your total pharmacy offer, to be able to compete and as I said, not only survive but thrive, say in a shopping centre. You know, you have to understand that, you know, that there's, you know, usually significantly higher rent bases, but that's also delivering you footfall that helps you know, build your obviously your revenue line. So yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act, and you know, it takes you know, a really solid, you know, value proposition and ensuring that you know, commercially it can make sense for you as well. And you know, that's always the balancing act, you know, with any business. But yeah, the strip shopping centres tend to be you know, obviously a lot lower rent bases, but you're dealing with often other restrictions like parking or less footfall.
If we go back the last 2 years, we've seen COVID really change the face of retailing.
Yes.
Change the way we transact, how many transactions are done digitally, and so it goes on. But it seems with the vaccination rollout, the role that pharmacists played was vital.
Yes.
And there is a trust factor about pharmacies that's always been there. Do you think it's been enhanced in the last 2 years because of what's gone on? And whereas the doctors have possibly suffered a little in
well, undoubtedly, I think it is. I mean, pharmacy is accessible. You know, day to day, they're very accessible. And, you know, through COVID, we were only one of the few retailers that was able to remain open largely. But due to our accessibility and, you know, we had already moved through a phase of doing flu vaccinations. And so it was natural that when the opportunity came up around, you know, COVID vaccinations as well, that we were very well positioned to cater for that need in the community. And I think it obviously transitioned quite very quickly. But, you know, our accessibility, our opening hours, our already sort of established initiatives around flu vaccination put us in good stead to be prepared. And so, you know, coupled with, you know, ensuring we're always open as well, and that I think what we found in pharmacy is that, you know, over these last couple of years with COVID, you know, what an integral part we play in that primary healthcare network, and in generally that sort of community health hub. And I think we really shone through, and I think we're coming out the other side now. And I think, you know, even governments are understanding that, you know, there's probably a more significant role that pharmacy and pharmacists can play, and that, you know, maybe historically we've been underutilised. And I think COVID shone a light on what the full scope of practice for a pharmacist, you know, could and should be. And so I think it's a really exciting time. I think looking forward, it's a very exciting time for the industry as well, because I think there's further opportunity for us to continue in that expansion of the scope of practice.
It looks, reading government policy, and I know that politicians can change, but it would seem that the under-resourcing of our health services sector means that there's a huge opportunity for pharmacists to play a broader role, and that may well change the sort of historical perspective, will it, for where you put your energy and where you make money. And I sort of wonder, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to say, which way do I want to go? Do I want to go down more the services route, rather than necessary retail, so that you could see some changes in the is that how you see it?
What I do see is, you know, pharmacists are clinicians, first and foremost, and, you know, they're really looking, you they've got patient health outcomes, at the forefront of a lot of their decision making. But pharmacists are also commercial as well, and they have to be commercial. And so it's that balancing act when you've got a health professional in a commercial environment. I think again, going down, you talked about going down the path of services versus say pure retail and things. I think it will be it'll be a balancing act, and I think you'll start seeing again more differentiated service models in certain pharmacy groups. Where they'll certainly focus on service provision as being an arrowhead of what they're doing in their business, and then you might find others that will tend to steer away from that and continue to focus on sort of the dispensary and say just the pure retail aspects, and I think it'll come down to sort of the market positioning, the position of how that and how often the pharmacist wants to run and manage their business, and where they see probably one of the other things that we need to touch on is that workforce pressures and workforce challenges are playing a significant role also in that decision making, and that's I think that's been really exacerbated throughout COVID as well, and so we're seeing that the access to professional staff being really challenged in the last 18 months to 2 years, and I think that will persist for the short to medium term, and so that's another part of the decision making for pharmacists that they need to make due to often workforce issues and pressures around professional staff and the ability to be able to service their patients, and so when you're thinking about things like vaccination or COVID vaccinations or flu vaccinations or any other health services that you provide, there is an element that you have to consider about the ability to resource and to make it commercially viable as well.
With resourcing, I sort of read some stats recently that suggested that pharmacy is one of the great areas where people want to study.
Yes.
So do you think the industry is going to be able to meet the demand? Is there enough graduates and young clinicians? Because I know the industry and I know Amcal and Guardian over the years have had a strong involvement with the floor staff and training people.
Yes.
Is that something that's a
weakness
or potential threat to the industry going forward?
Look, yes and no. I think the industry, and again, our bodies like the Pharmacy Guild play a very strong role in this, and I think our leadership of our current guild president with Trent Toomey, really looking at that aspect of workforce management in a sense, and ensuring that there's going to be sufficient pipeline of professional staff, especially as we if we're moving down the path of a full scope of practice for pharmacists. That does put more pressure on professional staff and workload. So that's I think as an industry, it's well understood, but it's not just around the pharmacists, the pharmacist teams that you need to build. There's also the other professional teams in your dispensary operations, like your dispensary technicians, your retail managers, and they're equally as important to ensure that you're building strong pipeline of growth in those teams. And those skills within, not only just in the pharmacy, but within the industry, because there needs to be training for those, for dispensary technicians and retail teams to provide that full width and breadth of the offer within the pharmacy.
If I'm a pharmacist now, unaligned, not that there are many, what are the things that your two major brands stand for? You've also got PharmaSave, I think, as well as part of your stuff.
Yeah, so look at two.
Why would I join Amcal?
Yeah, that's right, and
over other groups. What is it? Yeah,
that's right, and the other brand is Discount Drugstore.
Discount Drugstore, which is
our value offer basically. But again, so with Amcal, you've got a fantastic heritage brand. It's been around for over 85 years. Very strong brand association with trust and advice and service provision, but coupled with that, it's got a very strong foundation. Not only around trusted healthcare, we obviously, as I said, a very strong brand association with that, but also around sort of differentiated product offering. The Amcal brand itself has a very strong Amcal private label. Probably the strongest in the industry. So that sort of product differentiation makes a significant difference. And also just the over the course of time, building up what that customer value proposition is in things like convenience, accessibility, the loyalty program, and then a very strong health services provision. And I think that is very attractive for pharmacists. The Amcal brand competes very well in the retail space as well. And I think so. It can give a very strong and broad offer, and with a real focus on that trusted healthcare. And I think that that resonates very strongly in a community setting. When we look at, say, discount drugstore. Again, it's a very well-established brand, more so, through the states like Queensland and New South Wales. But, that has a very strong value proposition, a very strong retail offer, very, expanded range within those stores. And so you get a very, a good diversified portfolio of product. And also it's, a different demographic, and again, when you're assessing, which brand or where you're going to align with a brand, you do need to consider, the environment and the market that you're actually in. What is your local market, your local demographic, and where are the opportunities for you to provide a differentiated offer in that space that you can you're not going to get out-competed with. And I think that's part of the decision making. We work with franchise partners who are looking to make these decisions. Is ensuring,
so you've essentially got 4 brands. Do you sit down with a pharmacist and sort of say what is the best to suit you, or do you have one? Do you see your offers as one for a larger, more stronger promotional type of arm? Yeah, look, is it that sort of discussion?
Yeah, it is. And when we look at our brand propositions, it really is doing a lot of research around their local area and their catchment, and looking to see where that they can compete and get that competitive edge. And sometimes it comes down to purely the wants and needs and the beliefs of the pharmacist as the pharmacy owner. Because some of them will have a really strong retail flair and want to. That's right. That's right. And some have a very strong attraction to the dispensary and the health services, and that's where they want to. That's where they see themselves competing best. So I think it is really ensuring that you're meeting the needs and ensuring that commercially as well, that business can stack up as well, and that's an important process that we go through as a franchisor working with franchisees.
I think I'm right in saying it's about 5,600 pharmacies.
Yeah, very good.
Around that level. I looked it up before we got together.
Yes. Yep.
It just seems to me with a number of brands there's going to have to be a significant shakeout. But pharmacists have had if I said a history of being able to pick what suited their business, they're going to have to really make some fairly significant decisions, I would think, in the next 3 to 5 years as to how they see it. Because
that's right. And again, what I sort of touched on at the start is around, how the industry is sort of shaping as it's moving forward, and you're getting some extremely strong, well organised brands and retailers, and getting significant. National footprints. Yeah. And that's going to be very important. As a pharmacy owner, you have to consider that and consider how you're going to compete. And again, a lot of pharmacists, they go through that process of decision making, but is it going to be accelerated? Maybe. I see that consolidation piece only increasing.
With Woolworths and Coles, they've sort of made major inroads into the market anyway with the sort of product range that they've sold, that sort of pharmacies have sold. Do you see them making that big leap? Will they be permitted, do you think, over the next few years to make a bigger investment in pharmacy? Like there's been lots of discussions about
Yeah,
warehouse in the press. Will they sell
that's right, and
the Gantz family? Will they?
That's right, and we've been dealing with this for ever and a day. And look, I think there's very strong political support at the moment for the current pharmacy model. To be perfectly honest,
Yep.
It's not only just it's just not about retailing or money, dollars and cents. I think they see, and again, touching on what we've experienced in the last couple of years through COVID, I think we see the integral nature that pharmacy plays, not only in the say the retail setting in a lot of towns, and especially regional towns, but also in the healthcare network. And I think the government recognises that that's very important to ensure the viability of pharmacy moving forward, and that ability for pharmacy to play that role, that role in the community in those several aspects that I've just spoken about. I think that the government see it as an important linchpin in the healthcare and also just the community.
Probably more
network.
critical now than ever.
That's right. So
you couldn't see them being too.
That's right. But again, governments change and situations change, and as we've seen, environments change, and so where that leads to. But I'd say at this stage, on balance, you would think, and from what you see and hear from the government, I think they're seeing. There's a lot of the benefits certainly outweigh, so I suppose the risks, I suppose, of maintaining the model as it is at the moment, and I think it's serving the community very well, and it's serving the government well.
Just quickly, what do you think are the major threats to pharmacy over the next couple of years? Because you've moved into this new role, you've had a chance through the conferences to chat with a lot of pharmacists. What keeps them awake at night, do you think?
Look, if you're going to look at it, I think workforce pressures are probably up there at the moment. It's probably Are
they ageing? Are they?
Yeah. So workforce pressures. The ability, succession planning is a really big thing for pharmacy and pharmacy owners at the moment. And that can be quite challenging. So we've come from a period of there's been of intense pressure, through COVID, and we've seen those workforce pressures. So if I was going to look at it, I'd say probably workforce pressures, the ability for succession planning, I think, has been a bit challenging, and also that general competitive pressure, making decisions around, where they're leading and taking their businesses, just due to, the market forces that are out there. So, the industry is ever changing, retail's ever changing, everything's changing. There's the digital, we're living in a digital environment that is also changing the way we do business as well. And so it's taking those things, but probably workforce and succession are a couple of things that are, I think a lot of pharmacy owners and managers are sort of considering at the moment.
Final sort of question, before I just quickly talk about some of the things you like to do personally, but if we were to sit here in a couple of years' time, what are your sort of future aspirations? What are the things you'd like that you're working on now that you think are opportunities, without sort of going too much into it, but what's on your playlist over the next year or two?
Yeah, again, it's probably about, for myself in leading the brands and it's getting very clear on the strategy with our brand portfolio is going to be very important for us, ensuring that we're very clear on that customer value proposition and with a very strong lens on meeting the consumer need. And I think so when you think about meeting the consumer need, there's a significant transition with what's happening in the digital space, digital health technologies. I think that is an area of going to be significant growth.
Yes.
And advancement, and I think keeping abreast of that and keeping ahead of the curve of that, I think will be where some of the real successful players will be playing. So that for me is one. But secondly as well around just making the ease of doing business as a franchisor to a franchisee. supporting them operationally in how they can, manage and run their businesses more seamlessly, and taking some of those pressures off them, I think will be, a couple of real focus areas for us, because, again, as a franchisor, that ease of doing business and allowing them to really focus on the management of their business, the day-to-day activities that they do, exceptional patient care. That's what you want them focusing on, and so where we can be supporting operationally as well, and that for me are a couple of real areas of focus.
What do you like to do when you get some spare time? Not between East Gippsland and here and.
So avid traveller, and I've been nobbled in the last couple of years. So I like especially my European travel. So looking forward to getting back over there. I've got a family, so obviously lots of family time. And I've
how do they feel about your change?
Yeah, they're excited. Like, they've seen quite a transition in their lives and our lives and my working life, and I think they find it exciting, and so they're enjoying the changes that come across the desk when I tell them about things that are changing for myself. But more recently, in the last few years, I have entered the dark world of the lycra-clad bike rider.
Okay.
I'm now out on the road bike.
You look pretty fit, so
I'm
you're
out on the road bike, and now I'm not built for hills, but the Dandenongs actually scare me. But so I get out and about on the road bike now a lot, and so I'm finding that as a really good escape as well, when I can get the time in there.
Well, David, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's been terrific talking to you, and I appreciate the frank way that you've answered my questions, and I'm sure our viewers over there will get a lot out of today's presentation. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Thank you
so much.
Thank you.